Hi, my name is Joyce. Can you hear? I've been attending GCC services since I was a sophomore at Drexel in 2007, so it's been a while. But I wanted to take a few minutes today in this transition time. I'm graduating from med school and getting married next month, so it's kind of a big time for me. And getting baptized, so I wanted to share my story of how I came to love God. So the questions began when I took a world history class back in 8th grade. We dabbled in comparative religions, so I couldn't pinpoint what was wrong with the Christianity I was surrounded by in my childhood. It seemed like blind faith built only on rituals, rules, restrictions. It was something I did to preserve family purity. We were Roman Catholics since, the 1800s, I don't know. But I mulled over it for years. I made it my New Year's resolution several consecutive years, challenging myself to answer questions like, if there is a God, who is he? What is he like? Is it any of it real if we can't see it or feel it? I prided myself, like many wannabe doctors, on the infallibility of science, and eventually, high school, I decided that since nothing was proven, it was only rational and right that a judgment could not be made. I was convinced that I had figured it out. I subscribed to the deist ideology or theology of the Enlightenment thinkers, and thus considered myself sufficiently enlightened. God had to be a distant, unassuming clockmaker. It never made sense that one person or one God could attend to every human's needs. At least that's what I told myself, because deciphering this God business had turned out to be a veritable thorn in my side, something that kept coming back to haunt me. So it was just easier to label it as deism, hazy a term as it may have been at the time. I tabled it, pushing it to the back corner of my heart and my mind. I was comfortable there. What set me off pursuing a more real answer in the fall of 2007? Well, the first day of Drexel undergrad, I met two crazy girls. So with them came a revolutionary concept. You could be a passionate Christian, somebody alive with the love of God, but who was still creative, quirky, kind of cool. A very unusual idea for me at that time. So they weren't ashamed of being Christian, which was very strange for me. So I don't know, they convinced me to start going to these once a month Fusion First Fridays out in the northeast of Philadelphia. They had praise and worship, then they had some fellowship, some talking, hanging out. And it was pretty fun for me. But it was a bit of a shock when the songs that they were singing turned from just, me singing along with them, because it was kind of like fun karaoke. I'm just being honest, at that time, that's what it was for me. It was just I was having fun with my friends. But, slowly I noticed that the verses that I was singing started to click with me. It started making sense. And it spoke to me. But then, what was the tipping point? It was kind of a little bit banal, but a little, something a college freshman or sophomore takes very seriously, but it was a rejection from someone I really cared about, somebody I was really interested in. It set me thinking. I had to focus my energies on something bigger, something that had, been bothering me for so long. I had it with such vague generalities about something that was so obviously important. Even though I had assigned God to the periphery of my life until then, I had never denied that God was still crucial in the grand scheme of things. So it seemed like now was the time to reassess the situation. What if I had been wrong about him? My agnostic answer seemed more and more like a cop-out, a way to cope with our human frailty by shrugging our collective shoulders at potential greatness, putting it in a small box rather than allowing him to fill our every space. I recognized that I was guilty of loving creation rather than the Creator. As the idea of going to church, though, was still very strange for me. I couldn't seem to put myself into it. It seemed like after all these stubborn years of denying the plausibility of a loving, involved God, it felt a smidge hypocritical, actually. There was some fear, too, that someone would realize that I was being fake to my old self. But as I continued to go, I just ended up one Sunday, very random. They dropped me off here, and slowly but surely, the stone walls I had constructed around my life slowly crumbled. Faith is so much vaster than our human paradigms. I read some apologetics books specifically aimed at people like me who always relied on reasoning and facts. They helped a lot to clarify some issues, but the death knell to my old self was the realization that I was holding on to my past truths because of a certain underlying pride, that I was self-reliant, that I could figure things out. But once that hubris fell away, once I was on my knees in humility and humbleness, in my need for another to cleanse me, I saw the beauty of God. David cries out, "Create in me a pure heart and renew your steadfast spirit within me," in Psalm 51:10. And that really sums it up for me. This faith journey of mine has reflected that same cry for salvation. There are bumps in the road inherent with every faith journey, but there are always new discoveries and surprises to be found in this relationship with Christ. I can't say that this friendship with God has changed my end goals in and of itself, but he has adjusted certain bends and twists, so there's a bold new purpose and principle driving my actions, guiding my next step. He has set me on a much grander adventure that my 20-year-old self could never or would never recognize. While I always pursued, the kind of cliched aspirations to travel and help those in need, I still want those things. But these efforts are now imbued with a sense of urgency, a different reason. Rather than doing them for my own satisfaction or gain, I am pushed towards them to bring Christ's love for this world in concrete ways. So a lot of people, to conclude, a lot of people who come to know Christ will cite one day, 1 hour, one moment, when all of it clicked. But if I'm being honest, I can really only point to that time period. There are lots of stepping stone moments that converge to form a new bond in my life. I've lost the idea that I can figure it all out on my own, that I can find answers within the realm of humanity. But that realization, instead of creating panic or dissatisfaction like it did before, it just reminds me now to turn towards heaven and lean on God. It's been a true privilege to let go of the weight of this world and surrender my everything to God. So, thank you.